A constitution is not something written in stone. It is not some scripture frozen in time. Rather, it is a living document, a document of compromise that is not immune from the winds of change that blew quite strongly and all too often in our part of the globe. As times change, the makers of a constitution or their successors have to make timely changes in it without compromising on its basic tenets. That is, if they want the supreme law of the land governing all organs of the state as well as themselves to remain relevant. Nepal's newest charter, the sixth such charter in a space of roughly 70 years, is not and cannot be an exception. 9 years have gone by since the Constituent Assembly, in its second term, promulgated the Constitution of a federal, secular, and democratic Nepal. That is in a massive departure. That was in a massive departure from the unitary system amid a rough weather marked by protests from sections of the national population and displeasure from the next door neighbor. Looking back, the system stood pretty shakily on the twin pillars of multi-party democracy and constitutional monarchy on a seismic fault zone thanks to endemic corruption, a war, dynastic rules, both of the royals and champions of democracy, the so-called champions of democracy, rising public discontent and desires for change, even as foreign friends kept trying to muddy the waters and fish in them. A series of protests and considerable support. A series of protests and considerable support from near and far off shores worked wonders at that time also, and a floundering regime came tumbling down. Nearly 2 decades after the partyless Panchayat system toppled, this toppling came amid the winds of change in East Europe, making way for multi-party democracy and constitutional monarchy. As the Berlin Wall collapsed, as the Soviets withdrew from Afghanistan, among other major developments, Nepal's partyless Panchayat system also came crashing down. Is it a mere coincidence? I leave this question for the audience to just ponder over. Anyway, nearly a decade after the promulgation of the charter of a federal, secular, democratic republic, nearly a decade after the promulgation of that charter, which aimed to institutionalize democracy and republicanism by bringing the government at the doorsteps of the people living in far-flung areas in particular, things, in fact, have seemed to have gotten worse from bad. The uprooting of a homegrown institution, this in the name of revolution, this uprooting of a homegrown institution in the name of revolution has actually strengthened the stranglehold of foreign powers in Nepal, further weakening a shaky state with each passing day. In place of Narayan Hiti have just sprouted several foreign palaces that are far more powerful and capable of fomenting deeper and deeper crisis in Nepal. There's also a growing feeling among the public that select politicians representing the major political parties, which seem to represent one foreign power or the other anyway, rather than the Nepali people, can get away with anything, including policy level corruption in a new Nepal. Whether it's a new banana republic or a new republic, I leave it to the audience to decide. For public consumption, these politicians bicker over petty things, only to come together to save their skin when fresh corruption scandals come to the surface, contributing to their infamy in this process. Federalism, which was supposed to take the government to the doorsteps of the people, is proving to be very costly, with people having to feed the inhabitants of Simhadarbar, the inhabitants of Simhadarbars. With federalism, these lion palaces have sprung up in far-flung areas of the country, in the provinces in particular, and these taxpayers have to just, they have been complaining that they are having to pay exorbitant taxes to feed the inhabitants of the lion palaces that have sprung up at the provinces. Speaking just a few days ago in the business and industry hub of Biratnagar, the Prime Minister tried to clarify that Nepal's taxes were not exorbitant, but it's the wearer who knows where the shoe pinches. What one gets to hear more often than not these days is that the rulers from the center have left the lions loose among hapless sections of the society instead of extending the benevolent hand of the state in this country officially geared toward socialism, as the constitution of Nepal has put it. Not only have these rulers from the center let the man-eaters loose, they even engage in quarrels with subordinate lions every now and then. A case in point is a recurring war of words between the Prime Minister and the Kathmandu mayor. What's more, our federal experiment, it has been mostly about managing plum jobs at the provinces for cadres of different political parties and not about devolving power. Whenever there's a change of guard at the center, what happens is provincial governments also topple, deepening a chronic political instability and disenchanting the people further and further. Governments, they come and go, but with every new government comes significant changes in policies. Such policy departures are very dangerous for a relatively small, instability, and corruption plagued country like Nepal, especially at a time when the world is in a state of flux. All these factors, in fact, are pushing a considerable number of people with mind, muscle, and money abroad for jobs, for an education, and even for permanent settlement, making population dividend a chimera for Nepal and turning the country into a wasteland of sorts. The fallout of this exodus is evident, especially in rural areas of the country where the fields are lying fallow and even sparsely populated settlements are thinning further and further, with women, children, and senior citizens having to fend for themselves. Blurred and violated borders have become a safe conduit for unabated demographic aggression from a restive neighborhood, with severe ramifications for national defense, security, and national sovereignty itself. This does not bode well for a polity. Therefore, the parties represented in the parliament, particularly the Nepali Congress and the CPN-UML, the two largest parties in the parliament, they should wake up and act before things slip out of their hands. Amending the constitution may be necessary by taking the whole country into confidence through long and engaging discussions with every sections of the society on every topic, but it is equally necessary for Nepal's political leaders to mend ways. With this remark, I wrap up this edition of Soft Talk. I request you to subscribe to this channel, comment on our presentation, and press that like button. Your support means the world to us. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening.